Hello everyone. It's been a while, unfortunately, since I've had a chance to make a video, but I've been out traveling a lot. I was in Vietnam and Laos and Kuwait and Jordan, but at any rate, I'm back. And today I wanted to talk to you about a false dichotomy that many people see in the gender debate, and this is seen by people on both sides. Indeed, the fact that I would say both sides seems to wrongly indicate that there are only two sides, but that is not true. So many people think that we have two options. It's either traditional gender roles, traditional society, or it's feminism. And if you are against one, by default, you are in favor of the other. And as a men's rights advocate, I want to make it clear I am not in favor of either. Instead, what I believe in is actual equality. Let me explain. They are both based on, surprisingly, a gynocentric outlook. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure by now many of you have seen, rather than political views being a single line, right, left, there are four quadrants. Upper left, upper right, lower left. And in that sense, the authoritarian right and the authoritarian left border each other, and there's some connection. Same thing here. There's a great book out. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to read it. It's called From Feudalism to Feminism, The History of Gynocentrism. And basically, traditional society, contrary to what the feminists would say, is actually very gynocentric. Why? Because it wasn't patriarchal, it was chivalrous. And that's the feudalism part. Chivalry actually started in the High Middle Ages. Again, note the etymology of the word. It comes from the French chevalier, which means a knight. And chevalier itself comes from chevaux, meaning horse, because knights rode on horses. It was a code of conduct for knights in the Middle Ages. In one sense, it was actually a medieval version of the Geneva Conventions, the concern being that if one side had a big victory on the battlefield, that they would go on and just absolutely slaughter the losers. And to sort of prevent that kind of bloodshed, a code of conduct for knights was created. And how a knight should treat women was actually almost an afterthought. It was a secondary part of the code of chivalry. Yet that's the part that has remained to the present, or at least up until recently. People argue whether chivalry is dead. But at any rate, chivalry is literally ladies first. And it's not just entering a building or somewhat trivial matters. It involves getting off a sinking ship first. Or if there's a hostage situation, the women are negotiated for first. Those situations are literally matters of life and death. Also, traditional society was uptight with sexuality. Now, if you notice, both of these things are present in feminism. I don't think I need to explain to you how feminism puts women first, and many feminists are quite uptight with sexuality. So here we see a surprising overlap between traditionalists and feminists. It's been called an unholy alliance with regards to things like prostitution, pornography, and just putting women first in general. But again, it's not that surprising when you consider that they're both gynocentric. Indeed, as many of us have said, feminism is actually chivalry on steroids. The fact that feminism was able to flourish in Western society is not in spite of, but because of its chivalrous roots. We are so gynocentric that when we decided to move away from traditional gender roles, we only ever noticed the ones that affected women. So much so that we never even saw the ones that went the other way, and we therefore assumed that traditional gender roles only negatively impacted women. But nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, in many ways they did, but there were things that went the other way as well. To quote Karen Strawn, We are so trained to spot misogyny, we see evidence of it even where it doesn't exist. By contrast, we are so blind to misandry that we don't see it even when it's being applied with a sledgehammer. And to that I would like to add, type the word misandry into your computer. My guess is your spell check doesn't even recognize it as being a word. And this is what set up the unfortunate situation we are in now, where many people like Suzanne Venker, and I've read some of her articles, she's got some good stuff out there, but she seems to think that the only way to move away from feminism is to go back to traditional society. And many feminists insist on feminism because they didn't like traditional society, and they feel that if feminism is abandoned, then by default it's back to traditional society. But there's a third way, actual equality. I want to make it clear as an individual myself, not just as a men's rights advocate, there are a lot of aspects of traditional society I do like. I do like things like the importance of the Christian faith, marriage, and the nuclear family. But there are a few things I didn't like. I did not like forced traditional gender roles, and traditional society was too uptight with sexuality. So that's one of the many reasons I got involved with men's rights, because I want the good parts of traditional society, but I also want equality, and feminism is not equality. As I've frequently said to people, you can have feminism or you can have equality, but you can't have both. You can have neither, but you can't have both. So to summarize, traditional society was Gynocentrism A, and feminism is Gynocentrism B. And those who want to return to traditional society, I mean, it would be an improvement for men, but it's not the improvement people think it would be because it's just a return to Gynocentrism A. How about we try actual equality? We've talked about it for 50 years. Why don't we actually try it? I'm Dr. Carl. Enjoy.